Welcome, one and all, back to Johnnie Torch Live. Been a bit under the weather the past couple of days, so I apologize in advance for the sound of my voice, and if you can hear me coughing or the lozenge I have in my mouth, those are a little bit of the occupational hazards, I guess, of doing a live show while still recovering from a cold. How's everybody else been? Have you been enjoying your week? Hope you've had a better week than I have, being sick, but you can take a listen to my most recent Torch News Roundup. It was slightly before I started getting sick. I think my vocal abilities were still up to snuff, but yeah, it's been pretty tough. I wanted to get my Phantom Menace review up by the 40th birthday of Star Wars, which of course was on May 25th. Couldn't quite make it because, unfortunately, while I've had the raw audio in the can for quite a while, some of it needed to be re-recorded, and being the perfectionist that I am, I couldn't justify putting it out without re-recording some portions. So that long-awaited review is still awaiting some re-recording. Hopefully, in the near future, it will be out. I think reasonably won't be for another month, but we'll see. It's not too far from completion, so take heart. Hopefully, my voice holds out, and we can get to some of these shows that have been having season finales. Uh, I like to be able to get to them before my voice gets out, so I should get right to it. Okay. First up, let's see. We have Gotham. Let's take Gotham first. This, of course, wasn't a season finale. This was the what is it? Third to last episode? I think they're having a 2-hour finale. Is that what it is? And the same thing happened as last week. I end up losing the image. Anyway, we have the Executioner. That's who that was just a moment ago. And Michael Chiklis finally getting to play the main heavy on the show. He did a good job. I was quite pleased with his role here. Um, I'm glad they didn't draw out the courtroom scenes there, because most shows are want to do that and have him more and you know draw it out with witnesses or whatever. But they kept it pretty concise, and I was appreciative of that. Uh, Apparently now he'll be having a real axe hand since his hand got blasted off. Of course, this is all spoilers in case you didn't know. Spoilers for all these shows. So yeah, I enjoyed Chiklis on the show as the executioner. Obviously, he'll be back before the season's over. He got away toot sweet, as they say. Um, I don't know. I mean, I thought he get killed off the season. You know, I guess they're sort of doing a Galavan with him, where they just keep bringing him back during the whole season, and he'll probably get his comeuppance at the very end. But I liked the character, I liked the actor, and so hopefully he at least goes out with a bang. His costume was pretty amusing. I thought that was pretty good. Um, with the sort of Zartan-esque eye paint. That was very interesting. So what else? We had Ed and Oswald, excuse me, the Riddler and the Penguin, both in gilded cages, being captured by the court. It was pretty fun watching them sort of be allies again momentarily for the big escape. That was kind of amusing. I really don't like that they made them adversaries this season. I didn't really like the idea of making them lovers either. That didn't appeal to me either. Don't misunderstand me, but I don't know. It kind of seems more now like there's a blood feud between them two, and there seems to be like better storylines they could have pursued with them two without making them either too close or too adversarial. I don't know. My favorite scene of the episode was probably the Alfred Selena scene, because I really like the way those two play off each other, those characters and those actors. They play off each other very well. I really like the way Selina reacted to Alfred dropping that bomb on her and saying that she was just like her mother. She's a real good actress. Um, I can't remember her name right now, but the girl that plays Selina, and she really reacted really well with that, and I thought that was a great scene. Um, she's a very understated actress, when it comes to like face acting and you know things of that nature. She's really good at that. I thought Alfred giving Catherine the Luca Brasi treatment was a little over the top. But then again, they go and have her beheaded, so can't top that, can you? They get so many graphic beheadings this year. I think this is this the third? It's the second or third, and frankly, my stomach can't take it anymore. I should be used to it by now on Gotham, I know, but very too graphic for my taste. And then we have of course Bruce still being trained by his mentor that we really haven't gotten a name for him yet. He's working for the court, but it seems like he has his own motives. Don't really know where that's going. I guess this has something to do with the Court of Owl storyline in the comics. I never read those. I don't really know what's going on here. Um, I saw Batman versus Robin, which I was going to review that one of these days. I still really don't know where this is going, though. And we had a really interesting cliffhanger at the end here where Lee attempts to give herself the Alice virus. This is a very interesting turn of events. I don't really see where this is coming from, other than Lee's just gone nuts. Eh, I can kind of respect that they're not just taking the easy way out with Jim and Lee and trying to have them reconcile very easily and, just slap them back together and act like nothing happened. But still, where are they going with the storyline with Lee? I don't know. They're going to try to push her, I guess, as far to the breaking point as possible before they either get them back together or maybe write her out. I don't really know, because all of us assume that at some point, he's going to get with somebody and have Barbara Gordon, at least, because he has a son too, I believe in the comics, as you've seen in The Dark Knight. But I don't know what they're going with it. The plans just completely fell through when it came to Barbara Keene, who wasn't in this episode, by the way. Very disappointing. She was in that commercial that they show. They've been having those, little sketch commercials for the Hyundai or whatever car company or whatever it is, but where they have the guy questioning certain actors on the show and their character. Um, but anyhow, yeah. So that's all we have for Gotham. We've got, if I remember correctly, I think next week we have an episode, and then we have a 2-hour finale. I'm pretty sure that's the way they're doing it. They're just setting things up right now, pretty much for that. It was a decent episode. Uh, so let me know if you are watching live in the comments, in the chat room, which I am trying to monitor with one eye, what you thought about Gotham this week. Okay, now let me see if I can actually do this right and not let this get away. Okay, the next episode that we're going to do is the Smallville. No, I'm a little late for that. The Supergirl season 2 of Supergirl. All right, so this was a pretty scattershot season. This season was very all over the place. Um, I think it was a good conclusion in that respect, given all that they had to deal with. I mean, we still have a lot of stuff going into next season. We've got Jeremiah Danvers, still don't know what happened to him or how they're going to get him out of Cadmus. We have Hank Henshaw, the cyborg Superman, not on hand in this episode. What happened to him? He's obviously going to come back next season. So a lot of questions unanswered. Uh, what's going on with Jimmy? He was in the episode, but he wasn't Guardian. All this stuff is going on with an alien invasion, and he just has like a cameo with Kat in the office. I have a feeling that was probably something that was cut because you have her mentioning him to Clark earlier in the episode. Uh, but regardless, he wasn't really a factor in this episode. And of course, we started with the Superman versus Supergirl. throwdown in the middle of National City. I kind of feel that Superman was only brought into this episode simply so that fanboys wouldn't keep whining and crying. Where's Superman? There's an invasion. He should be here. They're taking over the world. What's going on? But he was completely unnecessary to this episode. Really. I mean, he provided some words of wisdom at the end of the episode, but apart from that, I mean, he really didn't get a good action scene. He takes out a couple of Daxamite grunts at the end of the episode, and you know, I honestly don't see Supergirl beating Superman in a hand-to-hand combat situation. Um, you would expect him to be more experienced. He's probably got the weight advantage, height advantage, so it's just being realistic to say that, but let's face it, it's her show. I mean, you're not going to see her lose on her show. Otherwise, story's over. The Daxamites win. We got a brief glimpse of General Zod. As they said, General Zod would be in the episode. Technically, he was, but he was only a vision that Superman saw. Can't really gauge a whole lot from seeing him that briefly. I think he was pretty effective. I mean, if they were to get that actor back to play the real General Zod in an episode, that would be cool. I would really enjoy that. But since we've already had Non, and now we have the Daxamites, we've got like two alien invaders already, playing their hand. I'm pretty sure they're not going to try it again in the third season. They did have a cliffhanger, so to speak. We'll get to that though in a few minutes. But um, so now I was a little leery of the plan. Now I'm not sure Supergirl or Superman would approve of a plan that would put even one life in danger. Also, we had Supergirl sort of conspiring, even though she gave her word that that Earth would lay down its arms and so forth. They already had a plan, working. Kind of deceitful for Supergirl. I can understand how it was necessary. It's sort of like a necessary evil, but I don't know. Anyhow, but nobody died except Rhea. They kind of had to give her a villain's death because she killed Sorbo after all. So we couldn't have her get away. But she was the only casualty, I suppose. So you know, usually in a Superman or Supergirl show, you don't really want to see casualties because that's sort of their code, not to have a life taken. This actually played out a lot like last season's finale, if you think about it. We had a superpowered dictator out to rule the world. Superman is brainwashed by the villain. There's an atmosphere-altering device originally created by Max Lord last season. Here it was created by Lex. Kara fighting a brainwashed loved one. Cat Grant making, broadcast overtures. So it seemed like last season's finale all over again, only slightly better executed, I think, this time. We had Miss Martian back briefly. That was fun to see her joining the crusade along with the Martian Manhunter. They got some action scenes. They really haven't done enough with her character, really, but there really wasn't much they could do beyond what they did all season, getting them, you know, both on the same page because of the obvious rivalry going on between the Green and White Martians. And the White Martians came in to help as well, which was a nice touch, I thought. So Cat Grant, yes, they seem to be having Cat Grant stick around. That was interesting. I thought they were going to sort of write her off instead of waiting until the beginning of next season. That's an interesting choice because it probably would be better to write her out now rather than start the season with, oh, Cat is going so and so and she won't be back until, the season finale. So that probably wasn't the best idea. But, we'll see how that works out. Now, was Cat saying to Kara that she's Supergirl or a Supergirl? The way that she phrases it. I don't know. I would prefer to think the latter. But, it's one of those things where they're trying to be cagey and, she's not that dumb that she doesn't know that she's Supergirl. But at the same time, you know, the Martian Manhunter already, you know, impersonated Supergirl to try to throw her off the scent. The ruse that they did earlier last season. And it looks like Alex and Maggie's getting married next season. Hoy vey. Uh, from what I hear, they're not going to have Maggie as a starring character anymore, as a starring status. She's going to be a recurring status, which is preferable because they just leaned way too heavy on that storyline this year, and to the detriment of all the other storylines that they had that they could have tied up much better. Uh, that was just one of them that they just spent way too much time on, especially at the beginning of the season. It got better at the end, but nobody's really, you know, at least for the comic fan, you're not really watching for the romance drama, and that's a CW staple, I understand, and all the shows have it, and most of the time everybody complains about it anyway. We'll get to that with Flash also coming up next, but traditionally it's the illicity thing. A lot of people don't want to be bothered with it. Here, this was another one where they just put too much emphasis on that. All right, so Mon-El got sent off, and kind of a fitting send off for Mon-El. I thought that it was a respectable send off. I mean, in the comics, I believe back in the Silver Age, it was a similar thing where, but he was put into the Phantom Zone for his own health and safety. So, kind of knew he wasn't going to last you know, the whole story, the whole series. But the interesting thing is that he looks like he goes into a black hole or something, and so I don't think we've seen the last of Mon-El. I think he'll be back next season at some point, probably having to do with the cliffhanger. I don't know really because I'm not sure what Rain is. I think they're saying that that's a character that's going to be the main villain next season. I'm not sure who that is or what that is. So I couldn't speculate, but that's interesting. It looks like what it reminds me of. It reminds me of in the Batman stories, going back to like the mid '80s. I remember a comic they had with a character called the Wraith, and he was like the complete opposite of Batman, where his parents were criminals, and Commissioner Gordon killed his parents, and how he grew up as an orphan, and he took on a similar costume as Batman, but he was called the Wraith, and he of course was a criminal, the polar opposite of Batman. I think it was only one story. He didn't last very long. He ends up dying at the end of the story, I think, if I remember correctly. It was a good story. I should dig it out and read it again because I still have it, of course. Um, but what I'm trying to get to is I think this is the same thing they're trying to do here, where it's another Kryptonian slash creature, maybe, I don't know, that got sent off of Krypton around the same time as Kara and Kal-El. And the same situation pretty much applies to him, other than the fact that he's the complete polar opposite of the heroes. And of course, I can't let the season go by without mentioning that um, Melissa Benoist just killed it at the end there, just knocked it out of the park. That was really emotional scene from her. Great actress. If nothing else, she's the reason to watch this show. I mean, if some of the politics gets to you, or the you know angst and drama or whatever is too much, that'll always be there because it's the CW after all. But Melissa Benoist is a complete consistent, a constant. She's always delivering a good performance, and it's worth seeing every time. So Supergirl wraps up for this season. I really can't speculate, like I said, on what next season will hold. I hope they're going to do well with this Rain storyline. Like I said, I don't know a whole lot about the character or the concept. I just hope it works well. All right, so let's take a look now at the Flash. We have the Flash coming up, and already I'm missing HR. Yep, HR was the sacrificial victim here for Iris. Basically, all those times we were seeing Iris getting killed all season long, 30 or 40 times we must have seen Iris' demise. And all that time was HR. Hard to believe, looking back at it now. Those are the most famous drumsticks in all of time. But yeah, it seemed like a obvious thing that it was the face changer. that was going to be coming into play. They even used it last week when Flash was impersonating Lila. It still caught me by surprise, honestly. I didn't really expect it. I mean, it makes sense, but I didn't expect it. And I really enjoyed this episode up until the last 10 minutes. The last 10 minutes was very problematic for me, but let me get to some of the good things here first before we get to that. I like that Barry was genuinely concerned for Savitar, for Barry, the time remnant Barry. Of course, for those of you who are joining late, if you're not watching this all the way through or whatever, you're going to notice my voice. I've got a, cough drop in my mouth, so if I have to every once in a while pause or sort of get my bearings, that's what it is because I'm still recovering from a cold. Don't worry, you won't catch it, I'm pretty sure. Now, where was I? Okay. So Barry goes to Savitar, goes to the Time Remnant, and he, tries to talk to him. That shows where he is. I thought that was very, accurate to the character. That was very, you know, it seemed a lot like Barry to be like that. And so he's tried to bring him into the fold, tried to, convince him that he would be a member of the team, sort of cared for. But, Savitar, of course, was too evil, wouldn't go for it. It's a very confusing, like I said, concept. I still liked this season. I didn't like the early parts of the season. I didn't like, I don't want to get too much into it because I know I want to be able to do a season all-encompassing video where I go through the whole season basically and what worked and what didn't. The problem with that is that I usually binge watch all these shows, and so I don't know when I have time to binge watch all of The Flash again. The beginning of the season, though, was, we had a lot of stuff with Iris that was really boring, and them going to be getting married, and it's still pretty distasteful for me because they are, foster siblings. And they had Wally trying to get his powers, and it was like a very slow start for the season. When they picked up mid-season with Julian joining the team, and um, you had HR, coming into his own, and the Savitar mystery and the Iris death mystery being revealed, it got a lot better, and so I think it redeemed itself by the end this season. Um, I liked Harry coming back. Harry, of course, the season 2 Wells. He's probably my favorite Wells of all of them. I liked him the best. I think he should have stayed, but then of course we wouldn't have had HR. But I liked Harry's scene with Tracy, and I also liked that she seemed unmoved by his plea. It seemed like she still didn't want to help Savitar. Not that it really mattered in the long run, but so Julian, he's been left alive. Everything I was expecting would be for him to die at some point, or something happened to him where he would be put out of commission, sort of like Ronnie or something, or maybe it was going to be ambiguous, but he would be completely removed from the equation. But we don't really know what's going to happen with him. I doubt he'll return to the semi-regular status he had this year. But I enjoyed his character. Tom Felton, of course, a great actor. He's welcome back in my book anytime. Hopefully he returns. Um, we got Killer Frost. Of course, Caitlin finally defeating her inner demon, so to speak. I kind of figured they'd choose to have the have your cake and eat it too option with her, because you really don't want to see her permanently evil, but then again, you don't want her cured of ever being Frost again and never seeing Frost come back, or her never using her powers. It seemed like a drag because, Cisco's allowed to continue on growing his powers and manifesting his powers, and then you have Caitlin who's either got to be Killer Frost or just have no powers. It didn't seem, fair. So it's fine by me that now she's sort of both, and I imagine she'll return to the team at some point next season, probably fairly early on in the season. We also have Gypsy returning for kind of a minor role. She really wasn't even a major effect here. Uh, so basically, I felt it was pretty anticlimactic that after all these months, laden with epic drama, that Savitar could be felled by a simple bullet. when I seen that, I expected it to be Joe, but having it be Iris, it felt more like it was an apology for her being a, quote unquote damsel in distress all season. I kind of felt like they were just trying to make it up to, the feminists in the audience, as they always seem to pander to. The SJWs was like, oh, Iris was just, damsel in distress all season. Well, duh, she's not a superhero. It's kind of, that's the way it works. I mean, I still would like to do a rant video on that, why people don't seem to understand how that concept works. But anyway, so, Iris survived. They gave her a little moment of glory. I guess that was fine. Um, Jay Garrick, of course, my favorite John Wesley ship, the original Flash, had a brief part in this episode. They didn't do anything with him. He pretty much just disappeared into the background. He and Wally had a attack on Savitar that didn't really go off that great. And then he's sort of like, Barry doesn't even say goodbye to him. He's just sort of like background wallpaper. So let's get to that ending now. That ending really rubbed me the wrong way. I really didn't understand why Barry would just blithely go off into the Speed Force prison. I mean, I understand that he's saying it's his penance and this and that for ruining everything with Flashpoint. He's caused so much trouble with that. But I really just could do without this Speed Force shenanigans next season, and it looks like they're going to go into it all over again. I mean, I appreciate seeing Barry's hot mom again, but it's just enough with the Speed Force, enough with all this craziness. I mean, I imagine, like, I haven't read the comics, in 20 years. When I used to read it, it was the cosmic treadmill. There was like the biggest thing he had, which was to go back in time once in a while or something. But now with the Speed Force and all this and that, it seems like it's unnecessary, and we're just going right back into it next season. So, soured me at the end of the season, but who knows? Who knows what next season brings? Like I said, I really can't speculate because now we're going into the Speed Force nonsense all over again. I don't think anybody has to worry. They're not going to make Wally the Flash, or if they do, he's going to be the Flash for like maybe one episode, maybe a half an episode. I would say probably less than an episode, maybe 2 episodes tops. I certainly don't think he's going to be the Flash longer than that. That's probably just going to be a little, Easter egg or nugget that they can give the fans that really loved Wally. This version of Wally couldn't carry a show. I mean, that's not an insult to the kid that plays him, Keaton Linesdale or something. He's a serviceable actor. He's good in the role. I like him enough. I like the way his hair has grown in this in the Flash cowl, the Kid Flash cowl. His hair looks like you can see it more now. It's noticeable because in the first season, or well, I guess I should say at the beginning of the season, it wasn't really noticeable, and that's kind of like Kid Flash's images of him having his hair exposed, and he really didn't have hair to expose. But all right, I think this was a pretty good season of The Flash. Not as good as the past two. A lot of people didn't like the second season. I liked it a lot. I, in fact, liked the second season better than the first. I like most of the season better than the last season, but as a season on the whole, I don't think it was as good. And we will have to see where it goes from here next season. All right, and so finally, the final finale, so to speak, we have the Arrow finale. And this I can unequivocally say was the best finale of all of them this season. We had Ollie going back to the island, Lee and you. And this is the way you do a cliffhanger ending. I don't want to get into that yet right now, but this is a cliffhanger. This is the way you end a season and have people dying for it to come back, as soon as possible. Now, I've made no bones about the fact that I thought the season was perhaps a little less than perfect, despite all the praise it's been getting. But this final pretty much makes up for at least most of the repetition and meandering of this season. Probably the only real flaw I might pick at is Slade's Mirakuru brain damage having conveniently worn off. I don't really dig that too much because it just seemed like it was convenient that, like, all right, after whatever it was, 4 seasons, maybe 3 seasons and a half, you want to say, the Mirakuru wears off and he's like normal again. I mean, you have to remember, how long was it? It was probably, what, 3 years before he got off that island and appeared in season 2? Something like that. So, I mean, so we're talking about it took, like, 6 or 7 years for the Mirakuru to wear off of Slade. I don't really get that. I mean, that's my only nitpick. That's the only thing that I kind of was, like, rolling my eyes at. But, I'll let that go, and the rest of this episode was just amazing. Amazing. We saw Boomerang, Captain Boomerang return. Not surprised at all to see him bite the dust because, of course, Warner Brothers is still jackasses and they don't know what they're doing with their characters. They have to make sure that if they're on TV, they get killed off because they're going to put them in the movies. And of course, Boomerang is already in Suicide Squad. And of course, I wouldn't be surprised if Slade ends up the same way, where they put him out to pasture after this episode. He's going to get killed. But hopefully not. We won't know until next season. Now, speaking of deaths, I wasn't entirely surprised to see Malcolm go either. Now, I've been a big advocate of having the character either return as a big bad or killing him off entirely. No more frenemy garbage. But if he was going to go out, and let's face it, he's known as the Magician. It wouldn't surprise me if he got away. This was probably the best way to send him off. All right, so Malcolm. I don't know. Is Malcolm going to come back next season? Probably not. I think John Barrowman has already made it clear that he's not coming back, so this probably is going to stick. I hope it does, because now you've got Malcolm. He's gone full circle from killing his son at the end of the first season to giving his life for his daughter at the end of the 5th season. Malcolm is gone, and I think that was probably for the best. I think that there was nothing else they could do with Malcolm that they haven't already done. He had a good role on Legends of Tomorrow this season. He was pretty effective in season 3, even though nobody really likes season 3. Of Arrow, I'm talking about. Well, it was fun to see the Black Canary versus Black Siren battle as well. Quentin anointing Dinah the Black Canary would have carried a bit more emotional weight had Dinah been allowed to develop it all this season, but it was also a bit odd that Black Siren was played more as a black-hatted villain here than the somewhat conflicted character of last episode. The Al Ghul sisters fight was pretty awesome, wasn't it? That was pretty cool. Nyssa returned, taking on Talia. And what about Artemis? Artemis was left high and dry. Artemis was left high and dry in that cage. Now, I expected it to be all part of the plan, but apparently she's toast now because, well, the island blew up. Speaking of which, they had the Nolan Batman parallels to the very end. We had Chase as the Joker, wanting Ollie to break his rule, sort of like the Dark Knight. And we also had him in sort of a Two-Face capacity, trying to kill his kid the same way Two-Face was trying to kill Gordon's son. So, the flashback ending was pretty awesome. The irony of Ivan Drago, I must break you, getting broken by Ollie wasn't lost on me. That was pretty cool. And then we had, of course, that heart-wrenching scene of Ollie calling Moira at the very end. That was just great. That was a great scene. And it finally comes back full circle now. We waited 5 years to see that whole island stuff go away. Some of it was good. I would argue seasons 1, 2, and this season was really good with the flashbacks. Seasons 3 and 4 were not that great. I didn't really mind season 3 too much. I think the problem with season 3 is it lasted too long. They started finding they started running out of things to do with him, basically. So it was like, oh, Shadow's sister just happens to show up, and things like that. But the core story with Katana was pretty good, I thought. Season 4, it was back to the island again, and it's just a time waster. It was like, look, we got to get him back on the island for one of these seasons, and so he has to be on it at least in more seasons than he was off it. So they came up with that whole thing with the idol or whatever, the Damien Dark idol. But anyhow, so that was interesting, but not really essential. So yeah, so we bid a fond farewell to the flashbacks. Next season, no flashbacks. So that will be very, very interesting. All right, so let's see. Before we wrap it up here, yeah. So I have to admit, Prometheus, he's going to go down as one of the best villains. I mean, the man thought of everything. I mean, he blew up the whole freaking island. He had everything rigged, with a sadistic choice that, you know, Ollie couldn't win either way. And then he's willing to just take himself out when Ollie doesn't choose one of the options that'll do him harm. Very, very capable villain, because that's what you like to see. You like to see a villain that's both physically capable and also mentally can mastermind a scenario against the hero that he can't just walk out of without some kind of, loss. And of course, like, it was like poetry. I mean, you had, you know, the um the season began, or the series began with, Ollie and his dad and another guy in the boat, and this season 5 ends with Ollie, his son, and another guy in a boat, and in both ways, in both, versions there, someone ends up killing themselves. In this case, it was Chase. So it was very interesting. I just enjoyed Arrow. I thought it was easily the best finale. So Arrow wins this week as the best season finale of this week. So, if you have any more thoughts on the season finales of Flash, Arrow, or Supergirl, or this week's episode of Gotham, let me know in the comments or in the chat room. We've got a few more minutes before I wrap it up. Coming up on our time, as usual, to wrap up the show. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, who has tuned in. Once again, apologize for some of the vocal difficulty that's been going on here, but we tried to soldier through. Uh, now that most of the shows are over, only Gotham is on next. I don't know. Usually we have a WWE segment. I don't think I'll make it for a WWE segment. My voice won't last. But so that'll come back maybe next week. Once all these shows are over, because now the CW shows are all over, I've only got Gotham to review. So I don't know if there's going to be too many more live broadcasts. I don't know if I could justify finding something to talk about. I was considering doing Torch News Roundups as live broadcasts, maybe instead. I don't know how that would go over too well, because, I appreciate a shorter form of video. I don't know how others feel, but it's easier to do like a news segment in 5 minutes or 6 or 7 minutes, and have it come across better than having to have someone watch a whole 50-minute video. In the case of a review or something like this, where it's a little more freeform, it's all right. But I think in the case of news, I don't know. I don't know if 45 minutes would be too much. All right, so thank you very much for tuning in once again. This was Johnnie Torch Live, coming to you live from Stately Torch Manor. And I will be seeing you again. Let's see. I've also got a video I'm going to be working on. I'm hoping to do with the comics. See, I haven't done too many comic reviews, but I was going to do a comic review of Kevin Smith's Batman 66 meets the Green Hornet. So I'm tentatively working on that. And of course, still working on the Phantom Menace review. Okay, so that'll do it for another week. Until next time, this is Johnnie Torch reminding you, keep the flame burning brightly, and I'll be with you again real soon.